As a kid, I remember seeing tabloid paper magazines about a girl who seemed too pretty to be real. She looked like a real-life doll. This would occur in line at Food Max, and I'd run and grab a copy and try to cram all the information I could before we got to the checkout, only to have the magazine snatched from my hands. I was told I was not allowed to read that garbage with no explanation. This in turn made me want to dig even deeper, because one thing about me is say I won't and I will 1,000 times over. Welcome back to Bay Area Housewife of True Crime. I'm Audrey, former paralegal turned stay-at-home mom who loves true crime. I like to tell the stories of the real cucuys and lloronas of the world, while also honoring and amplifying the lives of those we've lost. The cases I cover are wild. Topics may be triggering. Viewer and listener discretion is advised. The people mentioned are innocent until proven guilty in court. With all that being said, grab your hot Cheetos and let's get started on today's case. JonBenét Ramsey. This case is probably one of the most known in the true crime world. I've always thought her name was cool in that her dad's name is JonBenét and hers is a cute, unique girl version of JonBenét with an accent mark like Beyonce. And the cherry on top is her middle name to match her mother's. Cancel culture in the 90s was not a thing, and media would run wild and would say practically anything for a few cents. The media was extremely disrespectful to the Ramsey family, and especially to JonBenét herself from the start. One of the first officers at the scene did the now infamous response of cordial again and again when asked about the grieving father of the victim on national television on September 17th, 1999. People who the Ramseys trusted leaked their personal information to the press and even wrote books. The media especially loved to hate on the grieving mother who was in complete distress and not in her right mind to be giving interviews. Patsy Ramsey's voice was slurred. She seemed completely out of it, but I do not blame her. I would probably be acting the same way, if not worse, if I was in her position. That can be true at the same time as how unfairly critical the tabloids and the public was of her. Patsy was judged by how she chose to wear her makeup, what she wore, how she stood, how she decided to parent, and most especially her former beauty queen years. The media depicted her as this pageant dance mom monster who was living her dreams through her kids' interest in the same. The Ramseys were heavily judged for having their daughter participate in pageants in the first place, placing blame on them for putting her out there for a real-life cucuy to snatch her. Another chastised aspect of this case was the grossly contaminated crime scene, and this I completely agree with. It was Christmas night of 1996 in Boulder, Colorado. John, Patsy, Burke, and JonBenét Ramsey were back home from a Christmas party. JonBenét was 6 years old and Burke was 9. The kids get tucked into bed and they all go to sleep. The next morning, as Patsy gets up and is on her way to the kitchen to make her morning coffee, she discovers a ransom note on her staircase. She frantically calls 911 at 5:52 a.m. and police arrive within 3 minutes. The writing says not to contact the authorities. They have their daughter, and for her safe return, they need $118,000. Several hours pass by with no sign of JonBenét. The Ramsey's family call their lawyers, friends, and family. People come and go from the Ramsey home, painfully contaminating the crime scene. At around 1 p.m., JonBenét's dad finds her in the basement. There was tape over her mouth and a nylon cord around her neck. He rips the tape off her mouth, picks her up, and rushes her body upstairs to detectives, again painstakingly disturbing the forensics of the scene. The autopsy report lists the cause of death as asphyxia by strangulation associated with head trauma. Upon arrival, the police did not detect any signs of forced entry. An identified boot mark print was left in the basement. On the night of the murder, there were 2 windows left slightly open in order to allow electric cords connected to outdoor Christmas lights through. The ransom note was written from a page of Patsy's notebook, and the pen used to write also belonged to her. There were also drafts of the letter. And no one has ever said it was her writing, just that she cannot be excluded from having written it. It's very confusing, I know. A cord around JonBenét's neck had a paintbrush fastened at the end of it, and that paintbrush was a part of Patsy's art supplies. That paintbrush was also used to SA JonBenét. However, in addition to the paintbrush, they did find trauma indicating SA could have been happening leading up or prior to her murder.